Good morning. It's Monday, November 17th, 2025, and you're listening to your morning news report on life, liberty, and the pursuit of the Lord. The Jeffrey Epstein case continues to roil Beltway politics, with the Republican Party fractured on how to handle the matter. After it became clear that enough signatures were obtained for a discharge petition for a bill to release the sought-after files, House Speaker Mike Johnson said that he would put it to a vote sometime this week. On Friday, the president made a lengthy post to Truth Social, saying that he was pooling his support for Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, which read, "I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men and women's sports or transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world, as opposed to being the laughingstock that we were just 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars, record-setting, invested in the USA, and having created the hottest country anywhere in the world from being a dead country just 12 months ago, and so much more. All I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. It seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for senator or governor. She was at 12%, and didn't have a chance. Unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get. She has told many people that she is upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore. But with 219 congressmen and women, 53 U.S. senators, 24 cabinet members, and almost 200 countries, and an otherwise normal life to lead, I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie in her district of Georgia. They too are fed up with her antics, and if the right person runs, they will have my complete and unyielding support. She has gone far left, even doing The View with their low IQ Republican-hating anchors. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again." Greene, who once was one of Trump's closest allies in the House, provided one of 4 Republican signatures required to compel the vote. Trump continued to attack the Georgia representative on social media, calling her a traitor. The president also went after Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie, who is also in favor of the Epstein document release. Other Republicans who have signed on to the discharge petition are Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado and Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina, both of whom have been closely aligned with the president and MAGA. Representative Greene responded to the president, telling CNN's Dana Bash the following.
"I stood with President Trump when virtually no one else did. Campaigned all over the country, spent millions of my own dollars helping him get elected. And I think that's incredibly important. And I do support him and his administration. And I support them in delivering the campaign promises we made to the American people. His remarks, of course, have been hurtful. However, I have something in my heart that I think is incredibly important for our country. And that is to end the toxic fighting in politics. And this has been going on for years, and it has divided our country, split up friends and families, neighbors, and it's not solving our problems. The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor, and that is so extremely wrong. And those are the types of words used that can radicalize people against me and put my life in danger.
What do you think happened? What do you think is the reason for this?
Unfortunately, it has all come down to the Epstein files, and that is shocking. And, you know, I stand with these women. I stand with rape victims. I stand with children who are in terrible sex abuse situations. And I stand with survivors of trafficking and those that are trapped in sex trafficking. And I will not apologize for that. I believe the country deserves transparency in these files. And I don't believe that rich, powerful people should be protected if they have done anything wrong. And so I'm standing with the women, and I will continue to do my small part to get the files released.
On Sunday night, Trump made an abrupt switch, calling for Republicans to release Epstein-related documents in another lengthy post, saying, "As I said on Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files, because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. The Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein, are looking at various Democrat operatives, Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, etc., and their relationship to Epstein, and the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to. I don't care. All I do care about is that Republicans get back on point, which is the economy, affordability, where we are winning big, our victory on reducing inflation from the highest level in history to practically nothing, bringing down prices for the American people, delivering historic tax cuts, gaining trillions of dollars of investment into America, a record, the rebuilding of our military, securing our border, deporting criminal illegal aliens, ending men in women's sports, stopping transgender for everyone, and so much more. Nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive, and if the Democrats had anything, they would have released it before our landslide election victory. Some members of the Republican Party are being used, and we can't let that happen. Let's start talking about the Republican Party's record-setting achievements, and not fall into the Epstein trap, which is actually a curse on the Democrats, not us. Make America great again. CBS News reported that House leaders are looking to hold a vote sometime on Tuesday to release the Epstein documents. Stay tuned for more. Now this. On November 5th, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in a case that challenges much of Trump's tariff policy. The petition revolves around Trump's interpretation and use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, known as IEEPA. The president has issued emergencies on fentanyl, immigration, and unfair trade practices, all of which he has used to justify his tariffs. At oral arguments, many of the justices seemed wary of the president's interpretation of the law, which foremost does not see the tariffs as an inherent tax. This argument seemed to be an uphill battle despite the court's 6-3 split, which often sides with Trump. The president's legal team further argued that if the tariff is a tax, Congress has delegated the power to the president in special cases. Justices on both sides of the spectrum were skeptical here as well, citing a lack of checks on declared emergencies and whether or not Congress could constitutionally delegate such a task. Of this, Justice Gorsuch said the following.
Because you say we shouldn't be concerned because this is foreign affairs and the president has inherent authority, and so delegation off the books, more or less. And if that's true, what would prohibit Congress from just abdicating all responsibility to regulate foreign commerce, for that matter, declare war, to the president?
We don't contend that he could do that. If it did,
why not?
Well, because we're dealing with a statute, again, that has a whole...
I'm not asking about the statute. General, I'm not asking about the statute. I'm asking for your theory of the Constitution and why the major questions of non-delegation, what bite it would have in that case.
Yes, I would say by then you would move from the area where there's enormous deference to the president, actually both the political branches, where here there's inherent authority, and piled on top of that there's a broad delegation.
You're saying there's inherent authority in foreign affairs, all foreign affairs. So regulate commerce, duties, and tariffs and war. It's inherent authority all the way down, you say. Fine. Congress decides tomorrow, well, we're tired of this legislating business. We're just going to hand it all off to the president. What would stop Congress from doing that?
That would be different than a situation where there are metes and bounds, so to speak. It would be a wholesale application.
You say we are not here to judge metes and bounds when the foreign affairs. That's what I'm struggling with. You'd have to have some test. And if it isn't the intelligible principle test or something more with more bite than that, You're saying it's something less. Well, what is that less?
I think what the court has said in its opinions is just that it applies with much less force, more limited application in this context. So perhaps the right to approach it is a very, very deferential application of the intelligible principle test, that sort of wholesale abdication of...
All right, so now you're admitting that there is some non-delegation principle at play here, and therefore major questions as well. Is that right?
Very limited, very, very deferential. Okay. Limited is what, and again, the phrase that Justice Jackson uses, it just does not apply, at least.
I know, but that's where you started off, and now you've retreated from that, as I understand it.
Well, I think we would, as our frontline position, assert the stronger position, but if the court doesn't accept it, then if there is a highly deferential...
Can you give me a reason to accept it, though? That's what I'm struggling and waiting for. What's the reason to accept the notion that Congress can hand off the power to declare war to the president?
Well, we don't contend that. Again, that would be...
Well, you do. You say it's unreviewable. There's no manageable standard, nothing to be done. And now I think tell me if I'm wrong. You backed off that position.
Maybe that's fair to say.
Okay, all right.
That would be, I think, an abdication. That'd really be an abdication, not a delegation.
I'm delighted to hear that,
While rulings are typically handed down at the end of the term in June, it is expected that the High Court will rule on the case much sooner if they see the matter as urgent. As Trump signals he is considering rebates using tariff income, the Supreme Court could rule before the end of the year, especially considering they may ask Trump to repay the monies collected. That's all this morning, folks. Have a great day, and God bless.